that manner. So it would be able to be very precise. Like there's some phrase about, you know, being like an atom on the head of a pin or something. It's that precise. It can be that discreetly defined, but it can also be universal. So it's an incredible power. If you think, I mean, it's the power of the universe, really, to know its completeness and to know it in its minutia.
But based on our current state of conditioning, we might think that all that's impossible.
Unless someone told us and gave us the rationale for it.
Right. So that's what
Tom Blavatsky and William Q. Judge did. Yeah, and another point about consciousness, it says occultism teaches that simultaneously our consciousness could receive no less than 7 distinct impressions, one for every principle. So 7 impressions. We're probably not aware of all of them at the same time because we don't know how to be. And this is like the 7 keys on the scale of an instrument. Or colors, the 7 rays of the spectrum. So it says the 7 sounds will reach consciousness simultaneously, though the untrained consciousness may not be capable of registering them the first second. Their prolonged vibrations will strike the ear in 7 distinct sounds, one higher than the other in its pitch. All depends on training and attention. That's that focusing, the power of mind and thought. So the transference of a sensation from any organ to consciousness is almost instantaneous if you fix your attention upon it. But if any noise distracts your attention, it'll take a number of seconds before it reaches consciousness. So the occultist could train himself to receive and transmit along the line of the 7 scales of his consciousness every impression or impressions simultaneously. He who reduces the intervals of the physical time the most has made the most progress. And she wrote this in the Theosophist magazine, or it was reprinted there, Consciousness and Self-Consciousness, in 1925. And she gives the names and order of the 7 scales, which is really interesting. One, I guess this would be from where we are now, sense perception, from the lowest. And then 2 is self-perception, or apperception. And then 3 is psychic. Psychic apperception. She says, this carries to the 4th, vital perception. And these are the 4 lower, and they belong to the psychophysical.
What's the distinction between psychic apperception and self-perception?
I don't know, let me look. I didn't memorize this. And then the 3 higher, we're going from below up instead of from the universal, we're going from the individual. This is monastic discernment. And then will perception. It's just something to think about to get us aware that this is a science. Occultism is a science. Spiritual, conscious, apperception. The special organ of consciousness is, of course, the brain, and is located in the aura of the pineal gland in the living man. During the process of mind or thought manifesting to consciousness, constant vibrations of light take place. If one could see clairvoyantly in the brain of a living man, one could almost count the 7 shades of the successive scales of light, from the dullest to the brightest. And this is just a tiny bit left. What consciousness is can never be defined psychologically. We can analyze and classify its work and effects, but we can't define it unless we postulate an ego distinct from the body. The septenary scale of states of consciousness is reflected in the heart, which vibrates and illumines the 7 brains of the heart. It's like each has within each all the others, like the 49 fires are spoken of, the 7 times 7. So it illuminates the 7 brains of the heart, as does the 7 divisions or rays around the pineal gland. And that's all that is printed, so one would have to go digging in the secret doctrine for more.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
There's a website called Heart Map, and the guy came and talked to us, and for the first time, this student understood what the brain of the heart is. He showed the heart with the nerve centers that are connected to the brain. So it's the heart that controls the brain. It's not the other way around. It was really. Dupree gave me an article some 20 years ago called Brain of the Heart or something like that. I can't remember anymore. I still have it, but that's what it is. It's that the heart constantly sends these vibratory rays up to the brain. So that's why she says it's the heart that is the organ par excellence of the ego, because it is constantly shooting outward from the brain.
The
It's
mind
not the other way down.
really needs to be guided by
Very
the heart, or else it tends towards the lower, the animal. Without the heart, without that expansion, love, inclusion towards universal, it becomes personal.
I always thought that mind actually controlled I mean, the yogis and the monks, they're supposed to try and control everything, right? They're supposed to be able to lower their heart rate and so forth and so on, rather than the heart controlling the yogi.
Well, that would be
I know there's a definite connection. I mean, we have high blood pressure and all of these things due to stresses, but
that would be perhaps an example of someone, using a thought, purposely to obtain a certain effect, and through practice, through maybe perhaps learning from someone who knew, one could be able to do that through process of meditation. But maybe a cautionary note is that how is that helpful to all beings? If it's just to be able to be a cool trick,
well, no, you don't want
then it's
you don't want the physical organ, the heart controlling. I mean, it makes you fall in love. It makes you it makes you angry and this, that, and other. It seems what we want is self-control over all physical.
well, we
Well,
should separate
everybody, all
emotions.
mankind. I mean, we're going out fighting wars and all of that.
We should separate emotions from maybe aspiration. And I mean, because we don't have the words in English for all these things, we don't properly term it, because it's not really the heart that
It's a metaphor.
goes to infatuation, or it's we say the heart, but it's not really what's happening. This is a science. It's really the lower mind. And when a thought happens, there's a disturbance in the brain. It's like exercising that organ, and there's a change in the alteration of the whole frame. And if one could see clairvoyantly, as was said, certain colors or certain tones would be perceptible. So if one has a thought that punishment or shame. It can bring over the body a hot flush or a cold shiver, or you could faint. And the point is that the thought is having a concrete effect that we can perceive and illustrate.
No, exactly.
But-
So,
But are you not referring to the spiritual heart?
Yeah, but I guess, yeah, I'm trying not to mix it up too much with what we term heart. I love this, I love that, when it's really a like or a dislike, and that's really a personal. Do you have something to help
Well, now I'm
add
just
to
gonna
clarify?
toss out thought, question rather. Is it that then we come to a point of saying that when you say what we are, can you say that bottom line is that we are consciousness itself?
Consciousness is motion. Ultimately, there is no life without motion.
But we rather, of those two, we would say, you wouldn't say we're emotion, you would say we're consciousness. In other words, if it comes down to, let's say, spirit and matter, okay, you say, well,
Both.
yeah, we're both, because we're crystallized spirit, right? And but spirit is a synonym, for spirit is consciousness, right? So it comes down to, you say, who are you, or what is soul, or who are you, what am I? Consciousness itself.
But there's no state of consciousness without a corresponding state of matter, of being. We're even more than being.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, we're beingness. So to make a difference, to rise above those pairs of opposites, they are two sides of the same coin, spirit and matter, consciousness and, a vehicle for it on a certain plane. But we're more than that. We're greater than the sum of its parts. And just to add something about thought, William Q. Judge says that every thought leaves a seed in the mind or manas of the thinker, no matter how fugitive the thought was. So the whole sum of those seeds will go together to make up a larger seed for thought, and that constitutes the man, because we're made up of thought. The Buddha said we are made up of thought and built of thought. As we think, so we act. As we act, so we think we will suffer and rejoice, and the whole world with us, because we're not truly alone.
Well, that was exactly my point, in terms of, like I say, we're made of thought, okay? We're made of thought, and thought is consciousness. What would you say? Right? Well, consciousness is the sum of that thought.
There is a definition of the mind, I think it's on page 39, perhaps you would like to read it to me.
Of the secret
Secret
doctrine?
Doctrine.
Sure, can you get it? Let's check it out. Clarify.
At the top of the page, I think it's 39, if I remember.
Number one or number two?
One.
Probably in the
She defines what mind is at the top.
divine thought, for it is the 12 nidanas, or causes of being. Each is the effect of its antecedent cause, and a cause in its turn to its successor. The sum of the total of the nidanas being based on the four truths, a doctrine especially characteristic of the Hinayana system.
No,
That's not it.
Let me get the other
Yeah.
secret doctrine and I'll tell you. Must have remembered the page number wrong.
Causes of existence.
38.
Ah.
38.
Oh, mind is a name given to the sum of the states of consciousness grouped under thought, will, and feeling.
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming, and there's a study class in the Bhagavad Gita afterwards. And next week is Man, Mortal and Immortal. Same time, same place, 11 o'clock next week.